guys. I want to welcome you again to the Three Circle Podcast. This is Beyond the Weekend, where we go a little further, a little deeper into what we talked about on the weekend, and we get to know our guest a little more as well. We've been doing this week after week, and what we find out is that there is always a little more that we can dive into from the weekend teaching, but also every single person's so unique. They have a different angle. They have a different story. And we find that to be very fascinating. So that's what happens here on this podcast, Beyond the Weekend at Three Circle. And today, not going to be any different, except it's going to be unique and special because we have an incredible guest with us. One of our staff members, she has been a part of our church for a long, long time. One of the first friends, she and her husband were some of the first friends that my wife and I made when we came here 11 years ago to pastor here at Three Circle. She's a mom. She is, you're going to find out today, a creative powerhouse, great wife, and she's also the preschool director here at Three Circle. But she does so much more. We're going to dive into a little bit of that because she's a musician, a writer, and all of that makes her story very unique and very fascinating. So we are welcoming to the podcast today my good friend Lisa Decker.
Man, thanks so much for having me and for that encouragement.
Yeah, well, every bit of it. I could have gone further. There's so much to talk about that your intro could have been even bigger than that. So Lisa, been looking forward to having you on the podcast. I have such respect for you, and my wife Nan and I just love you so much. You and Brian, your husband, and really that connection goes back 11 years because when we first got here in August of 2012, the first thing we wanted to do is model community because we knew we wanted everyone to get in small groups. And so that meant we needed to be in one. And so we just started one. And you guys, we didn't know you yet, but you were like, we'll start it with you. And you were willing to start that small group at your house. And just great memories while we were getting our feet on the ground here of knowing that every week we were going to be back at your house. I can't even remember everyone that was in that group. Do you?
I think I remember most of them, but we're all in different groups now.
Right.
All, doing different things, but man, that was a sweet time.
Sweet time.
Like
kids were little.
The kids were little. We were young parents. No, I wasn't young, but I mean, we had young kids.
Yeah.
It was a sweet, sweet season.
Right. It really was. And you opened your home and good food. We always had good food.
Always good food.
Yeah.
When everyone else cooked.
Yes.
That's my favorite kind of food.
When other people bring it?
Other people bring
I got
it.
you.
Or Brian cooks. He's the cook in our family. He's magnificent.
Absolutely. So there's so many directions I want to go today with you, but first of all, we're doing Beyond the Weekend, and we just kicked off. You're the first one to help us on the podcast go Beyond the Weekend from the new series. We kicked off Achilles Heel this weekend. We're spending 4 weeks looking at the vulnerabilities that we all have, and we tried to find those that the Bible tends to bring up over and over, which
Sure.
must mean we all deal with them, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you and I would have unique vulnerabilities in our lives that would be unique to you and unique to me, but we all seem to have these four we're talking about. And the first one's time. We talked about time this weekend.
Yeah.
And 1 Peter, the kind of the anchor verse for the whole series is be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary, the devil, roars and prowls like a lion, seeking whom he may devour. When you hear that warning from Peter, what does it do for you? And really just as a person with all the things you're doing from being a mom and a wife to being a leader here in an entire ministry where next generation's coming through your ministry all the time. When you think, oh, we've got an enemy out there, what does that do for you spiritually?
Man, it is heavy. It's weighty, it's powerful, and it is very awakening. We made a fairly recent move. We're kind of out in the woods now, and we've got a pasture on one side and woods on the other. And during the day, no problem. But at nighttime, my son and I, a couple weeks ago, Brian was traveling, and my youngest son and I were taking out the trash. It was late at night.
Okay.
And he went out first to, hitch the can onto the thing we drive out there. And he came running back in. He was like, there are coyotes. And I was like, don't worry, they're way out. I went out there. Oh, these were close. I don't know how close they were. When you got a pack of coyotes, they make a lot of noise. Yeah. And so, I had to kind of show him, oh, it's okay. We got this. But inside, I'm like, stay close to me. He's 10. I'm like, Bradley, protect
you're
me.
living kind of the way I grew up. I grew up out in the country like that. And coyotes, you're right. It could be 5 of them when it sounds like there's 50 of them.
Yeah.
You know?
But here's the thing. Those coyotes are out there all the time. At that moment, we were aware of them.
Oh, man,
and
that's
that
good.
verse in Peter, that's what it does for me. Like, our enemy he's after us. He cannot stand when we're having community, when we're in the Word, when we're celebrating our Lord. Oh, that drives him nuts. He doesn't want that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And he is just looking for any way to tear that down, to interrupt that.
Absolutely. So when you hear that verse from Peter, you think he's not suddenly introducing us to the idea we have an enemy. We know that. He's trying to make us aware that our enemy is active.
For sure.
Okay.
Yep. He's like, guys, he's there.
Yeah.
Like, be aware of this, carry the weight of it, and don't go out unguarded.
Right. Absolutely. And why do you think that maybe, let's just talk Bible for a second, Lisa, and you're such a great Bible teacher to the kids underneath you and your family. I just know your love for the Word. The joke was when I was in small group with you, and you remember I would give you a hard time, is that I would prepare and I would teach and all this, and then you would just say something. You would have like a 20-second quote, and it would be the mic drop of the night. So if you remember, I was like, Lisa, you're gonna have to stop, because it's just. And of course, I was joking because I couldn't wait to hear what you had, your insight. Okay, so why is Peter maybe uniquely qualified to talk about the enemy in that way?
Ooh, putting me on the spot big time here. Let me think.
I've got an answer kind of in the queue for it that I've always thought. I just think Peter talks viscerally that way.
Sure.
Because he got attacked.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, multiple times, but the big one, the night he denies Jesus 3 times.
Oh,
the enemy, and I think his whole life, he thought, man, he got me.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming, and before I knew it, there was a rooster crowing,
Yeah. And you look at his pattern, and he was a very impassioned person, like just all out.
Yeah.
But that all out could take him in the right direction. It could take him in the wrong direction.
So true.
And I think he had those moments of awareness like, oh, gosh, Jesus is right before me. But then he realizes, but I go in my own strength. Mm-hmm. And then I realize my own capabilities for evil. And I also realize the enemy surrounding me there.
So true. So true. Okay. So we jumped in and we said we have these vulnerabilities that we use the old Greek mythology idea of Achilles heel. We use that phrase all the time. So we kind of told everyone this is where it comes from. And then the first one we looked at is how we handle our time. And all of the epistles from Peter to Paul to James all kind of come at it and kind of warn us that our time is a precious resource and the enemy is going to try to rob us and try to get us to misuse our time. Paul said, be wise how we use our time, make the most of it. And so I think you uniquely can speak to this, Lisa, as far as one of our staff team members, because you see, you're our preschool director at the church. So like recently we just had move up time, new kids, and you see kids come in, you see them in that real high growth time in their life, and then they go to another ministry area. How does your seat on the bus, so to speak, give you a unique perspective and how fleeting and how precious our time really is?
Oh man, I've got that perspective of looking at these families from the outside. And then I'm also, we always carry our own perspective, and having raised kids who now have their own kids, but still having young kids at home, I still fall into that same trap. I look at these young families and I just, I want to do the grandma thing and say, oh, it goes so fast, but at the same time, I'm coaching my own soul. I know this. And yet in my own home, I have to constantly remind myself, hey, I have today, and I've got to make sure that that's counting.
How did you keep from it becoming a pressure, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Rather than just a direction. I'm going to make the most of my time, because the Bible, I think, doesn't want us to worry, the truth that we don't have to fear. So I shouldn't wake up, I'm afraid I'm going to waste this day and all that. Where do you think the line is for parents, you and I both being parents, that I want to make the most of this day, but I'm also not going to live under a fear and pressure and anxiety and worry about it either? Where's that line?
For me, I don't know where to put the line, but for me, I would say it's the perspective and what my point of view is.
Okay.
Am I looking at myself and what I need to accomplish today? I've got to make sure they get everything they need. I've got to make sure and check off this list because I want to make sure I'm doing it all right. Or am I looking at my kids and going, what is their greatest need right now? Mm. And so, or if I'm looking at Christ and going, how can we connect today? Or my husband, have I flirted with him enough today?
There you go.
It's,
I hope Brian's listening right now.
Oh, I'm sure he will. He's going to send me a cute little text.
Yeah.
But, if it's if I'm inward focused, if I'm self-focused and trying to knock everything off the list, there's all the pressure in the world.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at what and who the Lord has put right around me and going, okay, what does he have? What is my part to play in this relationship today? Man, that changes everything. It just, for me, it's a big shift.
That's really good. Before we leave the time and your unique seat from the preschool perspective, if you were giving parents maybe a couple of things when it comes to time and redeeming, Paul said, let's redeem the time. Let's make the most of it. The days are evil. What would you say to them? Without putting pressure on, what would you say? Hey, here's a couple of things from my years of doing this that I think might be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, because let me focus on a couple areas.
Okay.
I'm gonna talk to the moms for a minute, if that's all right.
That's
These
totally
moms
fine.
with little ones, because that's pretty much the heart of my ministry. The dads absolutely also, but for a minute, I want to talk to just the moms, especially those with little ones in their homes. And first, I would say to them, look for your yeses, because our time, we're getting we're pulled in so many different directions.
Yes, busy.
But busy. And we've got these little ones. Mama, will you help me with this? Mama, can we play a game? Mama, can we, it's mama, 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 mama. And it really, it can be very overwhelming. But as moms, we need to give a lot of no's because we're in those training phases. We've got to let them know there are boundaries, there are parameters, there are rules. The no's, honestly, are going to come naturally. The yeses, some of us have to work for. And so I had a wise friend a long time ago when I only had littles. She said, instead of saying, in a minute, what if we said, for just a minute? And so if I'm in the middle of something and one of my kids says, Mama, can you do this with me? Instead of saying, in a minute, let me finish this, which sometimes there's a place for that. They need to learn. They're not the center of the universe, of course.
Right.
But when we're doing that all day long, what if we instead said, sure, I can play that for a few minutes and then I'll get back
Man, I love that.
to this.
So instead of putting the kid off in a way, you're kind of setting a boundary, right? You're saying, we'll do this for a few minutes. So it's a yes with some parameters.
Absolutely.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah. And then, so just looking for those yeses. And then even, I'm still doing it with my older kids. I know how precious that time is. I've got a senior in high school now. You know that. You have one as well.
That's blowing my mind.
It's always been just kind of an unspoken rule, and now it's going to be a very spoken rule. With my teenagers, anytime they ask for, they're never going to ask for conversation. Hey, mother, will you converse with me? Yeah. But if they just lean against the counter, I know they want to chat.
So my wife and I, we say with our teenagers now, and all of our kids now are teenagers, we say that when the door's open, we walk through it.
Absolutely.
And we let them open the door.
100% of the time.
And just like you just said, they don't ever say, come on in the door, but we're looking for these clues. Oh, they're a little more chatty right now. Let's dive in.
Yep.
Last night, my oldest son, who you just mentioned, he's a senior in high school. He's one of the interns here, whatever. One of his jobs is to help put out signs for the student ministry. And I was so proud of him because he knew he wasn't going to have time to do it today because of football. So last night we have dinner, we're hanging out. I'm tired. It's been a long day. And we had storms here last night. Thank goodness we needed rain bad. So there were two storms. One came through and it was kind of in between. And he comes in, he says, hey, I've got to go. I'm going to run to the church. I've got to get these put out tonight because I'm not going to be able to do it tomorrow. And he looked over at me and he said, want to go help?
Aww.
And I did not, Lisa. I was so tired. It'd been a long day. I bet
you were.
And I looked over at my wife and we both just knew. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That this 15-minute ride to the church and that 30 minutes of putting out signs, and absolutely, I'm not missing this for the world. And so we came, and it was fun because we could see the next storm coming. So we're running around putting out signs. It'd be kind of a little memory, but I just love that it's more like natural than you think. It's really when the door opens, walk through it.
Right. And you'll always have that.
Yeah.
You'll always have that night that you put up the signs in the storm. I've never looked back and thought, gosh, I sure wish that, I would have spent more time doing this or that and, spent less time on the floor with the kids. Never. And so those moms with the littles, be on the floor with them. I want to give a shout out to Katie, who leads our connection team.
Yeah.
Incredible woman.
She is amazing.
Yeah. And I
need to get her on the podcast.
You do. Oh my goodness. And you could ask her anything. Like that woman, she is a woman of God. But yesterday I got the privilege to pray with her. I love how we get to all pray together.
As a staff.
Every week as a staff. I got to pray with her and ask her how things were going. And she shared the coolest things. So she's had a very busy season. She's been leading a lot of meetings and just a lot of events going on for her. And she's been so intentional to then retreat and have time with her husband, Cody, and have time with their little one. And she said this and I was like, Katie, I want every mama to know this. She said, yeah, there was one day, we're in a heat wave here. I don't know if
Big
you're aware of this, Pastor Chris,
That's
but
why we're
it's
so
a little
excited
hot,
about the rain.
Right?
Did you see Facebook and others today? Everyone's talking about the rain like we've never seen it.
Like, what is this? There was stuff falling from the sky.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, so Katie, in the midst of that heat, her little one wanted to go out and play in the pool. And Katie said, let me tell you, to get from where I was in my comfy spot in the air-conditioned house out to that pool and to change into a swimsuit and, all these different things, there were 10 times I had to deny myself. But I got out there and we spent an hour and a half, and it was the best hour and a half I've had. I'm like, Katie, bring it. Like that, that is a strong yes.
But it's not like she planned, that wasn't on the plan sheet,
Nope.
But that door cracked open.
Yes.
And that's how life happens. I love that Deuteronomy, and I know we've kind of gone down the parenting trail, but in the book of Deuteronomy, it says while you're living life.
Yeah.
Yep. Like that's when as you go, as you live, as you're lying down and as you're sitting up and going and walking. And so that's how it is. And we integrate our faith into real life.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. And then I would also add, again, for those mamas, that yes, we can also swing to the other end of that and give our kid every yes. And as a result, we're giving a no to our husband. We're giving a no to extended family or to, ministry opportunities.
So
I don't
true.
want us to be so busy that we don't have time for our kids, but I don't want us to be so focused on our kids that we neglect the fact that we're a follower of Christ. We are wives. We are, some workers, some at home, and also that fellowship with other moms. Like those things are critical. And one of the greatest things I read when I was a young mom, it's a great little book. I don't even think you can get anymore. It was called Diapers, Pacifiers, and Other Holy Things.
Oh, wow.
Just the title alone had me.
Yeah, that's a great title.
And every chapter was like—
Who wrote it?
I don't know. I need to find it. I tried to look for it a couple months ago to pass it along to a friend. It's gone. I need to find that. But it was, and each of them are like 2-page chapters. It is made for mamas.
Oh, yeah.
But one of them said, just a moment. And it was a mom who, before she had her first baby, she would have this hour-long quiet time every morning. Well, moms are probably, if they even have time to listen to a podcast, they're laughing right now. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Because, and I've talked to moms, they said, I set my alarm earlier each day, and it doesn't matter. Whatever time I get up is when the baby wakes up.
Yeah.
Well, this mom, she went through this thing of lamenting that time with Christ.
I get it.
And this one day, like, she hit rock bottom. She was changing her baby's diaper, and she's like, I'm just changing diapers all day long. And then she paused and she went, just like you're changing me all the time.
Yeah.
And then she was washing dishes, and she's like, you're forever keeping me clean, and it's you who washes me. And like all through this, the day, she kept having these thoughts. So she started putting sticky notes everywhere on her house, around her house, just reminders of what the Lord was doing in her. And at the conclusion, she said, it took not having a quiet time with the Lord to realize I had all day with him.
Oh, come on now. That
Mamas,
was in the book.
You have all day with him. Yes.
You know what? Something like that, that's so good. I hope so many hear this podcast and get to this moment because that is so freeing.
Right.
I think we put so much pressure on people, and it's kind of got like a Pharisee edge to it. Hey, if you don't get that hour of pure time and all of that, when really it is real life.
Yeah.
And I know that we had Angel on the pod, Angel, one of our incredible.
I loved that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you remember she said same thing. She
Yeah.
realized she used to have all this time to dedicate to just pure time with God, and all that went out the window. So she started finding ways to redeem, like drive. She said in her car.
Yes.
She started going, I'm listening to scripture. I'm not wasting that time. And I just think things like that set people free.
Exactly. And I think that one really struck me. And then Pastor Zach, I believe, talked about, listening. And
yes,
I used to have this stigma against listening to the word.
I know.
Where did that come from?
Where do we get that?
Right, and now, okay, that moment did you watch Tangled?
I watched it, but I don't remember much.
I don't know if we're allowed to talk about, Disney movies.
Yeah,
but there's this moment where she is laying on her bed. She looks up and sees a painting that she's made. She's painted it her whole life.
Okay.
And then she looks around the room. It's this realization moment. She realizes, she makes a connection. What she had been painting her whole life was something from her childhood that had, she had been taken out of a situation. She was like, it's been there my whole life. Well, that was that for me. After hearing Zach and Angel both allude to that same thing, scriptures came to mind. Do not just be hearers of the word, but doers. I was like, and then you start seeing it all over and realize it's a very modern thing that we have this to read. Now, I'm still a huge fan of reading the word.
Same here.
but it's okay to hear it.
Yeah.
Either way, just ingest it, however it gets in there.
Yeah, and spend time with the Lord.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, the disciples were not, the scrolls were in temples.
Right.
You didn't walk
we
around.
We weren't privy to it.
Yeah, they didn't walk around with that under their arm.
Right.
And so there was a lot of audible going on there. So it's very, very, very interesting. I just love all of that, Lisa. But what I want people to know today too is that you are a you're a multifaceted, as we all are. All of us are multifaceted. We're complicated. But I would say with you, I'd use the word complexity more in a beautiful way because, I think people realize you bring so much to bear on the preschool direction and what an important ministry that is. And you help families and you've blessed so many people, but people may not be aware that you are I really would say a creative powerhouse. You're a musician, you're a writer. People may not realize we do this thing called Creative Christmas that we kicked off about a decade ago. You've written several of those, one in particular a couple of years ago. You wrote the entire thing, and for people to understand what a creative undertaking that is, it's unbelievable. And you had this cohesive story that you were telling. It included a masterful song that you co-wrote with Ben, I believe, helped you write it. But it was your song, and it's "The Empty Chair," which people just couldn't believe. This song, they're asking us, where did it come from? It came from you. And I remember, Lisa, because I want to hear a little bit about your creative process, but I remember walking into the lobby after one of the Creative Christmases, and a guy was here who was visiting his family from Nashville, and they had all come. And he grabs me in the lobby, and he said, "Hey, man, just want to tell you, in Nashville, I would have paid $100 a ticket to go see what I saw here tonight."
Wow.
And that was the one you wrote. Okay, so with all that in mind, and then you play keys with our worship team. And so tell us about that side of you and how God has used that. Where did that come from? The creative side of Lisa Decker.
I have absolutely no idea, but I know, and I didn't even realize it was a thing. I thought everybody just made a hobby of thinking all the time. It's only been in recent years that I realized it's kind of freakish. And literally to the point that my family will be talking to me, and I will even acknowledge them, but then I'll go, after a minute, I'll go, "Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. I just realized I wasn't listening to anything you said." Because in my mind, I'm writing something.
I've had this
or
problem.
I'm creating a project.
This problem's been my problem my whole life.
Okay, so you get it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but you find that you think you're the only one, and then you get in a room with other creatives. I remember when I got to college, and I was touring with a group at the time. Music was my main thing that I was doing at the time. And the first time I ever got in a room with 10 other people like me that wrote and thought, and I thought, oh man, I'm not.
There are others.
I'm not a weirdo.
I've got a brother.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. So now, like, if someone's talking, if I'm having a conversation and they're looking away, like, I might just stop talking because I realize if my family doesn't have my eyes, they don't have my attention at all. Well, not everyone is like that. I don't realize that.
Well, that's a good word, though.
Yeah,
that's a great line.
And so they know now, like. Because I will acknowledge them vocally and not even know I'm doing it. Yeah. Like they'll say, "Hey, Mama," "Oh yeah, what's going on?" But I'm still,
you're not present.
I've got multiple spinning windows in my brain.
Yeah.
And I don't even know they're talking to me. And so I just assume.
So you've always had that very creative side.
Always.
Okay. So you're bringing that to bear. Just to talk about it for a second. Let's talk about that particular Creative Christmas. Because I thought, and this is for real. This is good stuff. And then others affirmed it, like the guy in the lobby, and people just couldn't believe how powerful it was. And then if you don't mind, tell us where the song came from, this powerful Empty Chair song.
Absolutely. So my mom was my best friend besides Brian. Amazing. One of the most amazing women, probably the most amazing woman I have ever known. Right. And my husband is my best friend, always will be. Like, I adore him.
Sure.
But my mom was what I called her the validator. Like anything in my life didn't quite feel real until I told it to her.
Oh, wow.
And she was that person. She met the level of joy, the level of everything. Like she was outside of Brian. She was my best friend.
She was at our church. So all of us who knew her,
yeah.
we were blessed to be in her presence.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. This woman who was in a wheelchair from the time she was in her early 30s from a car accident and got saved after that would sit because she couldn't stand. And she would just raise her arms in worship and just worship like no one else.
To watch her worship, we would all say, oh man, it was something.
Yeah. Yeah. So we lost her.
Yes.
She went to be with the Lord a year and a half ago now. And that was nobody prepared me for how hard that was. To me, I always thought that's the natural way of life. You lose your parents. They go first. It never dawned on me that not just losing a parent, but Carol Mudrick was an incredible woman. Anyone who knew her suffered a huge loss.
Yeah.
But she was also so dear to me, not just as a mom, but as one of my best friends I had ever had. And she was the validator. Like something wasn't quite real until I told it to her.
You can't get ready for that.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And so as we were preparing for that Creative Christmas, I think you were in that planning meeting, and we talked about the fact that for whatever reason, that year, it felt like there was a lot of loss in our local body. A lot of people were feeling it.
Well, we were coming on the heels of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many things happening in the world than what you had been through.
Right.
And I remember, because often those meetings are fun and light.
Right.
That one felt different.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. And we almost felt like we kind of need to meet everyone where they are. Yes, we need to celebrate Christmas. We need to do all the lights, all the festivities. But we also need to speak into this, because for some people, Christmas is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so.
And you were experiencing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we had been looking at Christmas traditions around the world. And there's one where, and actually it happens in a few different countries, where they set an empty chair at the table for someone they've lost. And I was like, guys, this has to be a song. But then I realized I can't ask someone else to write my song or my story. And so I just got to work, and I could only work on it a little while. I had to work. The criteria was nobody could be home.
Okay.
We have a big family. That was a big undertaking, because I knew I needed to be alone, and I only had a limited time before it was too much, too heavy. I had to put it away.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I got the first draft of the song done, and then passed it on to Ben, who is just an artistic genius.
Yeah.
And he really gave life to it.
Anytime, because we do a lot of songwriting around here, and I'm grateful to be involved in that at some level. But he's one of the guys I know that if I've got an idea, I can run it by Ben, and suddenly it comes to life in some ways. But that song, Lisa, is beautiful. If people haven't heard it, and I think we're releasing it this year. I think this is going to be a release from Three Circle Music. What did it feel like as a creative person? Because here's what happened that year. People don't know this. So you write this thing, it comes out of your heart, not just the song, but the entire thing comes out of your heart and mind and your creativity, and then you don't get to actually be a part of it because you had a shoulder injury, right?
Right.
You had shoulder problem, back problem, everything kind of hit at that same time. And so how did it feel to sit in a seat and watch that thing come to life in front of you? That thing that was in you is now coming to life with other voices and people. I would imagine that was an exhilarating experience. What was it like?
It was off the charts. And it was when I tore my rotator cuff the day before that event.
Yes.
I was devastated. And I think it was all the emotion too, because I practiced the song until it was numb. I practiced until I could not feel a thing, because I did not want to have any emotion the night of.
Got it.
When I had that weird step and tore my rotator cuff, I mean, it just, I still tried to play. And I was like, guys, I'm doing this. I didn't know it was torn at that time. I didn't know how severe the injury was.
But you were in a lot of pain.
I was in a lot of pain. And I was determined I was going to play, but then realized this was a time I had to kind of take one for the team. I realized it's a detriment to the team if I'm there, because at that point I was all up in my head. I was in pain, and I realized I can't bring it what it needs. That was such a God thing. I know he stepped in and said, no, Lisa, you need to pull yourself out of this. And so I did, and our team was incredible.
Yeah.
And another, a guy came along with very little warning, learned the whole song, did it beautifully. But because of that, I got to sit with my family.
Oh, man.
And we got to have that moment of just feeling the weight of loss, but also the celebration, because the song doesn't leave you in the dirt. The song takes you to when we're all going to be, it's this empty chair at the table. But at the end of it, we're all going to sit together at his table. And so we went through the grief of the loss, but the excitement and the hope of the reunion. And it just, that was a beautiful moment for our family.
I love that story. Did you find that writing the song was a part of your process? And
100%. Yeah. I run from pain.
Okay.
I couldn't run from this. It would hit me at the most inopportune time. I think you've seen me, cry in the middle of the office at the weirdest times.
Yeah, you and I talked about it. When you lose someone that huge, because she was your validator, and my validator was my grandfather.
Yeah.
And when I lost my grandfather, I remember I didn't know what to do. The world did not feel the same.
Right.
And that was something I did not expect. And so I just remember, like you just said, it would hit me at the weirdest times.
Yeah.
You know, I can remember a few weeks after my grandfather passed and we did the funeral and everything. And I grew up on a farm and that was all connected to him. Weirdest thing, I'm going down the road and there's this tractor in a field that I go by. And as a kid, I always knew my granddad's on that tractor. And it hit me. And I remember I almost had to pull off the side of the road. I'm like, oh, and so that's how it goes. And you find ways, I think as humans, God gives us these ways to process, but you found a powerful avenue to process the greatest loss in your life up to that point. And it was through your creativity.
Right. And it was, I never put it together until that moment, because creativity has been a common thread through my life. And at times it's been a hindrance because I just get trapped in my own mind and don't know how to relate. But yeah, it was that creativity that the Lord had put in me from the very beginning that became a huge part of that healing process.
You know what's awesome, though, is that as you were processing your situation and you put out this song and you do Creative Christmas, here's how God works. He used your story to help a whole bunch of other folks.
Aww.
You know what I mean? Because that's what we started getting the feedback.
Wow.
Oh man, that song helped me and helped me and helped me. And you realize, we're all dealing with loss.
We're all in this together.
And so God used that thing that was so painful for you and ministered to so many other people through it. And I just love that.
That's how we're created to be. Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. He created us to go through it together.
Yeah.
But somehow we think grief has to be a solo path because no one else feels my grief. Well, no, but they have their grief, and let's walk it together.
Well, I'm so grateful that you, Lisa, here at Three Circle, you have brought all of your gifts to bear in so many ways. We're all blessed that you're on this team and helping us. So to kind of land the plane, now that we understand you've got all these things that you're doing and bringing to the table, tell us to kind of finalize our podcast today. How does Lisa Decker walk with Jesus? What does it look like? Because we kind of want people to understand there's these different angles, and you've told us today there was times in your life where an hour a day and it got this pure quiet time, but then life happens, and so how do you uniquely keep your walk with Jesus close and intimate and consistent?
Yeah, I love when you ask people that question. And actually, that's one of my favorite questions to ask others as well. I ask them, tell me how you met your husband. Tell me, tell me what your life with Jesus is like. I eat that stuff up.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of a dichotomy.
Okay.
It is truly two ends of the spectrum.
Wow.
Because I'm mentally all over the place. Like I just squirrel, I'm that person. Because of that, my time in the Word has to be very disciplined. So I think the less self-control we have, the more external control we need. And so
another good line. See, that's that stuff you would do in our small group right there. There it is. And to be so all over the map, like you say, you sure can pull together a succinct sentence with such power. So I love that. So you say if you're all over the map, then you might want to bring more discipline to your spiritual walk.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And for me, that just means my day has to start in the Word. Now, sometimes I've got a fire I need to put out first, or I've got this I need to do. Yeah. But before I really get going, the Word has to come first. Some people, it's at the end of the day. It's different for everyone.
But you learned your rhythm.
I learned my rhythm. But as far as prayer and community with Christ, that's throughout the day. It's a continuous conversation.
Good.
Again, back to that little snippet in the book.
Mm-hmm.
It took not having a quiet time with the Lord to realize I had all day with Him. For me, it's, just that constant conversation. And part of some of this has come about since losing Mom.
Okay.
She was, I called her my validator. Like, it didn't feel real until I told her about it. Well, I realized who's the ultimate validator? It's Christ Himself. So a lot of times I'm just telling Him what's happening in my day because it becomes
so
real once I run it by Him or thank Him for something cool I see or, whatever. It's just this continuous little things that happen. I'm learning to go to Him first and have this continual conversation.
Yeah. I love that every person that I ask that question, they bring something unique every single time. And I think the hammer that you kind of were swinging there that's going to set people free is when you said the more unorganized, or maybe just kind of, if you're creative, whatever it is, you might want to bring in more structure to the spiritual side and figure out what works for you and get become as consistent as you can.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, I just love that. And I think so many people are going to be blessed to hear from you today. You brought so much to the table. Again, keep writing songs because you sure do write some good ones.
Thank you.
And if you've not heard, listen, if you're on this podcast today and you have not heard the song Empty Chair, be looking for it. It's going to be released this year around Christmas time. And if you're out there and you're a parent and you have kids, you can just know Lisa is a part of that team that's helping us develop the pathway for our children to know Jesus and love Jesus and walk with Jesus. And so, listen, wherever you are and whatever you're doing today, our hope, Lisa and I and our entire team, is that something was said today that would stir your heart affection for Jesus. We hope you're encouraged. We hope that we've given you maybe some ideas to help you in your own walk with God. But at the end of the day, we hope that you will love Jesus, truly love him, and have affection for him. And that will lead to you really walking with him. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, be blessed today. And hey, come back here next week, same place, same time. We're going to be going beyond the weekend as we continue in our current series. And hey, let's keep walking with Jesus and loving him. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time here at the 3 Circle Podcast.